I never thought the moment my brother stood up at my dad's birthday dinner, smiling like he owned the entire world, would be the moment he announced he was kicking me out of my own house. Yes, you heard that right. My own house, the house I paid for, the house I renovated, the house I had spent years turning into a home, and he stood there, in front of my entire family, in front of our dad who had just blown out his birthday candles and declared that I had 2 weeks to leave his place. I swear for a second everything went blurry. My ears were ringing, my mouth went dry, and everyone just stared at me, waiting to see how I was going to react, as if I was the crazy one. Tell me, was I wrong for what I did next? Would you have handled it any differently? But before I get to the part where everything truly exploded, I need to go back to how it all began. Because trust me, this wasn't some random family fight. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was the result of years, literal years, of me being the responsible one, the stable one, the one everyone depended on, and yet somehow also the one they all walked all over. My brother Sam was the golden child, always had been, always will be, at least in his own mind. He was the loud, charming type who could talk his way out of anything. Growing up, if he messed up, I'd get blamed for not guiding him. If he failed a class, it was because I didn't study with him. If he crashed the family car, our parents just sighed and said, "He's still learning." Meanwhile, I was working 2 part-time jobs at 17 and no one even blinked. By the time I turned 22, I had already moved out, finished school and landed a full-time job. I saved aggressively. Every bonus, every overtime hour, every tax refund, until finally I scraped together enough for a small but cozy home. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath place with a little garden in the back and a comforting silence that I never truly had growing up in our chaotic household. I took so much pride in it. The first night I slept there, I cried, not because I was lonely, but because for the first time in my life, I felt like I had something solid, something stable, something that couldn't just be taken away, except apparently it could be, at least according to my brother. It started around the time Sam lost his job. Actually, lost is a generous word. He was fired for not showing up to work 3 days in a row. Why? Because his girlfriend at the time wanted to take a spontaneous road trip. And Sam, being Sam, didn't think something as tiny and inconvenient as employment should get in the way of having fun. When he came back with some weak excuse about car trouble and emergencies, his boss didn't believe a word of it. He was let go immediately, and instead of learning from it, Sam sulked like someone had committed a crime against him. He moved back in with my parents, who were already struggling financially since Dad's health had been declining and medical expenses were eating up their savings. My mom worked part-time and my dad was on disability leave. They didn't need another adult child depending on them, but Sam saw no issue. He stayed there for almost a year doing absolutely nothing productive while I helped pay for groceries, house repairs, medications, anything my parents needed. Sam contributed nothing, not a cent. But anytime I confronted him, Mom jumped to defend him. "He'll figure it out," she'd say. "He just needs some time." Time apparently meant unlimited years and unlimited handouts. Eventually, things got worse when Dad's doctor told him he needed a quieter environment, less stress. The noise, the constant arguing, the mess Sam brought with him, it was too much. Mom called me one night crying, saying she didn't know how to tell Sam he needed to find somewhere else to stay. So, being the big-hearted idiot that I am, I said, "Fine, he can stay with me for a while." Worst decision of my life. Sam moved into my place like he owned it. The first week was okay. He was still on his best behavior. But by week 2, the mask fell off. Suddenly he wasn't cleaning after himself. He wasn't applying for jobs. He wasn't paying rent or bills. Even though we agreed he'd contribute a little once he got a job. He spent all night playing video games, used my car without asking, ate my groceries, and even had friends over while I was at work. One morning I woke up to find 3 of his buddies passed out in my living room, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and beer cans. I worked a full-time job and came home to a frat house I never signed up for. I confronted him, obviously. I tried to be calm at first. I told him this wasn't sustainable, that he needed to get serious, that he needed to pull his weight. He nodded, apologized, promised he'd get it together, and then did absolutely nothing. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into nearly a year, and every time I tried to kick him out, my parents begged me not to. "He's not ready," Mom would say, "just until he finds his footing." Dad, who felt guilty about everything, would say, "It's temporary. He just needs encouragement." Meanwhile, I was slowly losing my sanity. I couldn't enjoy my own home. I couldn't have friends over. I couldn't relax. I was living with a grown man, child who had zero intention of changing. Still, I held on. Maybe because part of me wanted to believe people can grow. Maybe because I felt responsible. Or maybe because I didn't want to be the villain my family already painted me as. Then things reached the breaking point. About 2 months before Dad's birthday, Sam announced he had a business plan. Whenever he used that phrase, I knew it meant trouble. He claimed he wanted to start some luxury car rental service. Mind you, this man did not own a car. He didn't even have money for gas most days, but he wanted to build an empire. And guess what he needed to start this empire? My credit? He wanted me to co-sign a huge loan so he could buy 2 used sports cars. When I said absolutely not, he exploded. He accused me of being selfish. He accused me of not believing in him. He accused me of keeping him small so I could feel superior. I laughed because the alternative was screaming. That's when something shifted in him. He became colder, more entitled, more hostile. As if I owed him something. As if everything I had built belonged to him too. And I didn't see the full scale of his delusion until that night, Dad's birthday dinner. It was supposed to be a simple family gathering. Just dinner, cake, some quiet conversation. Dad wasn't in great health, so we wanted to keep things calm. I arrived a little late because I had to finish a last-minute task at work. When I walked in, everyone was already seated. Sam looked strangely confident, almost smug. He kept glancing at me with this expression like he was waiting for something. Dinner was tense. Mom kept fussing over Dad. Dad looked tired but happy. Sam barely spoke to me. I tried to ignore him and focus on making Dad's night pleasant. After dessert, Dad blew out his candles and we all clapped. And that's when Sam stood up. I remember the sound of his chair scraping against the floor. That awful, slow screech that made everyone look at him. He clapped his hands dramatically and said, "Actually, I have an announcement too." My stomach twisted. Whenever Sam said something like that, chaos followed. He grinned, looked directly at me, and said, "Since everyone's here, I figured it's the perfect time to let you all know that I'll be taking over the house from now on. And since I'm the new owner, I'm giving you." He pointed at me, 2 weeks to move out. There was dead silence. Complete suffocating silence. Then he added, like the final twist of a knife, "You're welcome to stay longer if you start paying rent to me, but honestly, I think it's better if you find your own place." I felt the blood drain from my face. My dad's eyes widened. My mom gasped, and everyone else just looked confused. I asked, my voice shaking, "What the hell are you talking about?" Sam smirked like he had rehearsed this moment. "Dad signed over the property to me. The house. It's mine now." My heart stopped. "What property?" I whispered. He rolled his eyes. "The house. Your house." I froze. That wasn't possible. That made no sense. The house was in my name. I bought it. I paid for it. Every document, every receipt, every mortgage statement had my name on it. I said quietly, "You're lying." He shrugged. "Not lying." Dad transferred it legally. We went to a lawyer. Papers signed and everything. So like I said, you need to pack your stuff. I felt tears burning at the back of my eyes. My dad looked horrified. "Sam, what are you talking about?" he snapped. "I didn't sign anything like that." And Sam, unbelievably, had the audacity to laugh. "Dad, you don't remember. The documents I brought you last month. You signed them. I told you it was related to refinancing something for my business. You signed the whole stack." My dad's face went pale. My mom covered her mouth with her hands. And I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Sam had tricked him. He had tricked our aging, medicated father into signing documents he didn't understand. He had taken advantage of him, manipulated him, exploited his declining memory and trust. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stood up, shaking with anger, but before I could say a word, Sam cut me off. "Look, whether you like it or not, it's done. I'm the owner now. And frankly, I deserve it more than you. You had your chance. You never helped me. You never supported my dreams. You never gave me anything." My mom finally snapped, yelling, "She gave you a home!" But Sam didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He just looked at me with that smug, triumphant expression as if he had won something. That night changed everything. I left the dinner early because I physically couldn't stay in the same room as him anymore. I drove home my home and sat in my car for almost 20 minutes because I couldn't bring myself to walk inside and see his things. His mess. His entitlement. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to disappear. Because how do you fight someone who has no shame? How do you fight someone who believes the world owes them everything? Over the next few days, I did what I had to do. I contacted my documents. I met with people, made calls, pulled records, pulled signatures, everything. I wasn't going to lose my home. Not to him. Not like this. And the more I dug, the more disturbing everything became. But before I get into what I discovered, And what I eventually did about it, I want to ask you something directly. Because this moment, right here, is where everything hung in the balance. So that's the situation I was in. My own brother publicly declared he was kicking me out of my own house, using forged signatures and manipulation. I had a choice to make, a big one. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you confront him? Would you call the police? Would you stay quiet? Or would you burn everything down just to make a point? When I drove home after that dinner, my mind was spinning so fast I could barely think straight. You know when you're so angry, so hurt, so blindsided that your brain starts replaying every moment like a broken tape. That's what the entire night felt like. My own brother announcing in front of everyone that he was kicking me out from the house I bought, using documents he tricked my sick father into signing. I barely slept. I kept pacing back and forth across the living room floor, staring at the walls, the furniture, the memories I had built there, and imagining him stripping them all away. I kept hearing his voice, that smug tone, the way he said, "You had your chance." It was like he truly thought he deserved everything I worked for. And the more I replayed it, the more I felt something inside me snap, not a breakdown, but a shift. Something that's sharper, something that said no. Not again, not ever. The next morning, the first thing I did was call a lawyer. Actually, I called 3. I wasn't taking chances. I didn't trust anything anymore. I gathered every document I owned, my mortgage papers, my purchase agreement, bank statements, emails from the realtor, even the photos from the day I closed on the house. I went through every cabinet, every drawer, every file. And while I was doing that, guess where Sam was? Sleeping in my guest room until noon, blasting music when he finally woke up. Then asking me if I could transfer him a little money for breakfast. I swear I saw red, but I didn't lash out, not yet, because I needed to be careful. I needed to be smart. And more than anything, I needed to make sure he never got away with what he did to our father. When I met with the lawyers, the situation became clearer and uglier. They told me that if Sam had forged documents, coerced signatures, or misrepresented paperwork to someone who wasn't in the right mental state, then the documents would almost definitely be invalid. But the problem was Sam wasn't stupid, reckless, yes, entitled always, manipulative, definitely, but not stupid. If he managed to trick my father into signing something in front of a notary, or if he used legal loopholes, then untangling it wouldn't be easy. I felt sick just hearing those possibilities. One lawyer, a sharp woman with silver hair and the bluntest tone imaginable, said, "This isn't just theft. It's elder exploitation. It's fraud. And depending on how deep it goes, he could face prison time." And for the first time since that awful dinner, I felt hope. Not because I wanted my brother in prison, but because I wanted justice for my dad, for myself. For every moment Sam had walked over us like we were stepping stones. When I drove home that afternoon, I found something that nearly shattered the last bit of restraint I had. Sam had invited people over again. 2 of his friends were sitting on my couch eating takeout, laughing, spilling drinks on my rug like it was some kind of communal party house. One of them actually had his shoes on the coffee table I spent a month saving for. Sam turned to me, smiled, and said, "We're watching the game. You don't mind, right?" I didn't even answer. I just walked straight to my room, locked the door, and sat on the floor staring into space. This wasn't accidental disrespect. This was deliberate. He wanted me uncomfortable. He wanted me stressed. He wanted me out. And that's when it clicked. He thought he had already won. He thought I was defeated. He thought I was going to pack up and leave quietly so he could play king of a castle he didn't build. He had no idea what was coming. Over the next week, I worked nonstop. I compiled evidence of every financial contribution I'd ever made. I got statements from neighbors who had seen me living there for years. I contacted the notary office to request records of any recent signings involving my father's name. I spoke to my dad's doctor, who confirmed in writing that my father's memory and cognitive clarity had significantly declined and that he was easily confused by paperwork. My lawyer said that alone would demolish anything Sam tried to claim. But the most disturbing piece came when the notary information finally arrived. The signature on the property transfer matched my dad's, barely. But the paperwork had corrections, odd pen strokes, and parts that didn't make sense. The notary wasn't even the same one my dad had used in the past. Something felt severely off, and I knew deep down Sam had done something shady to get those signatures. While all of that was happening behind the scenes, Sam continued acting like he already owned the house. One night I heard him on the phone talking loudly to someone. He said, "Yeah man, once she's gone, I'm turning the extra rooms into rentals. Easy money. This place is gonna be sick. Honestly, she should be grateful I'm letting her stay at all. He was planning to rent out my home. Et moi me, rooms that I had painted, furnished, paid for. He wanted to turn my safe place into some cheap bachelor pad he could profit from. If anyone else had done this to me, maybe I wouldn't have felt so personally betrayed. But this was my brother. The same kid I gave money to. The same guy I covered for in school. The same person I let live in my house rent, free for almost a year. The line wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated. Finally, after days of burning through stress and adrenaline, my lawyer called me and said, "We're ready, we have enough, now we take action." And action came fast. The morning everything went down started so normally it was almost surreal. I woke up, made myself coffee, sat in silence while Sam slept until late morning. He eventually barged into the kitchen shirtless, yawning like he hadn't a single worry in the world. And he said, casually, "Don't forget, you have like 11 days left. I want the place cleared so I can start the renovation." I didn't even respond. I just stared at him, memorizing that moment, because I knew it was one of the last times he'd ever get to talk to me like that. 2 hours later, the knock came loud. Firm. Authoritative. Sam opened the door, probably expecting another package or one of his useless friends. Instead, he found 2 police officers standing on the porch and a woman in a suit holding a folder. I was right behind him when it happened. His face went from relaxed to confused to stiff in less than 5 seconds. One officer said, "We're here to serve a temporary restraining order and removal notice." Sam laughed. Actually laughed. For who? My lawyer stepped forward. "For you, Mr. Sam Walker." He turned to me. Stung, what the hell is this? I finally spoke, my voice steady. "Consequences." The officer handed him papers. "You are being removed from the premises due to allegations of fraud, elder exploitation, coercion, and unlawful eviction attempts. You are required to vacate immediately pending further investigation." Sam exploded. "Fraud? Elder exploitation? I didn't do anything. She's lying. This isn't wise." My lawyer stepped in calmly. "No, it is not. And until the investigation is complete, you cannot come near the property, nor your sister, nor your father. The restraining order includes all 3. You should have seen his face. It twisted into a mixture of panic, humiliation, and rage. He tried to push past the officer, pointing at me wildly. "Why did I? You're setting me up. You're trying to ruin my life." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You ruined your own life the moment you tricked Dad." His eyes flickered, and for the first time I saw guilt, real guilt, but only for a moment. Then the anger came back even stronger. "This isn't over," he snapped. "I'll fight this. I'll win. You can't just throw family out like trash." And I answered softly, "You did." The officers gave him 10 minutes to gather essentials. He stomped around the house, slamming doors, grabbing clothes, muttering curses, trying to make me flinch. I didn't, not once. I stood there like stone, watching him pack the last pieces of his freeloading existence. When the officers finally escorted him out, he turned back one last time. His voice dropped low and venomous. "You're dead to me?" I didn't respond. I just closed the door. And as soon as the lock clicked, I collapsed against it, shaking not out of fear but out of relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. The silence of the house felt different. Not empty, free. But that wasn't the end. The legal battle that followed was intense. Sam tried to fight, of course. He hired a lawyer who had clearly never dealt with someone as sloppy as him. They tried to claim the signatures were real. They tried to claim Dad knew what he was signing. They tried to claim the house was family property. They tried everything. But the notary records were shady. The signature inconsistencies were obvious. And Dad, who testified with my lawyer present, said clearly, "I thought the papers were for something else. I didn't know it was about the house." That alone crushed Sam's entire case. 3 weeks later, the judge ruled the documents void. Everything Sam tried to do was declared illegitimate. The house remained legally, fully, unquestionably mine. And Sam, well, the court ordered him into mandatory financial counseling and put him under investigation for elder manipulation. He avoided jail only because my dad refused to press criminal charges. Dad, being the soft-hearted man he is, said, "He's still my son." I didn't argue. I didn't want prison for Sam. I just wanted my life back. But even after all that, Sam never apologized. Not once. He sent me one message, a short, bitter text that said, "Hope you're happy." I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it without replying. Months passed. My house eventually felt like mine again. I changed the locks, redecorated, repainted rooms he used, threw out everything he left behind, and reclaimed every corner. My parents apologized countless times, especially my dad, who felt horribly guilty. I told them it wasn't their fault, and I meant it. Sam's choices were Sam's alone. One day, Mom asked me quietly, "Do you think you'll ever speak to him again?" I didn't know how to answer, so I told her the truth. Maybe someday. But not now. Not until he understands the damage he caused. Not until he grows up. Not until he learns what family actually means. And who knows? Maybe that day will come. Maybe it won't. But I'm not holding my breath. Because surviving that whole ordeal taught me something important. Blood doesn't entitle someone to your sacrifices. Family isn't about DNA, it's about respect, boundaries, effort, and love. And if someone abuses those things, they forfeit the right to your kindness. Looking back on everything now, I still can't believe he thought he could steal my home and get away with it. I can't believe he stood at that dinner table and announced my eviction like some twisted victory dance. But more than anything, I can't believe I let him treat me like that for so long. Not anymore. So if you've stayed with me through this entire story, thank you. And if you ever find yourself dealing with someone, family or not, who takes advantage of you, remember this: you are not obligated to stay silent. You are not obligated to be the bigger person. You are not obligated to sacrifice your peace for someone who brings chaos into your life. Take back your space. Take back your strength. Take back your story. And if you were on my side through all of this, like this video, it helps more than you know. Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have fought back the way I did, or taken a different path?